If you want to learn how to hit on the Nike SNKRS app, that is exactly what I'm going to show you how to do in this video. I've personally been able to hit on hundreds and hundreds of pairs on this app, and I can tell you right now that it is not just about getting lucky. There is a proven formula that not a lot of people know about that you can use to start increasing your chances of being able to consistently hit. I'm giving it all away for free in this video, and all I ask is that you drop a like if this provided you any sort of value and subscribe to the channel for more detailed guides on reselling, finance, and making money online. And one last thing before we get into it is that this video is being pulled directly from my sneaker reselling course, and that is 100% free for you guys to access. So if you want to learn how to make thousands of dollars in profit with sneaker reselling, I'll be leaving a link to that full video, the full course, down in the description below. So with all that being said, let's get right into it. All right, so we are going to be going over how to hit on the Nike SNKRS app, and this guide is going to be covering everything that you guys need to know. And if you want direct access to this guide, I'm going to be linking it down in the description below. So if you want to follow along or you just want to read it on your own, you're going to have full access to all the information we're going to be covering. So let's get started. As mentioned before, I do have a completely free sneaker reselling course, so I highly recommend giving that a watch if you're interested in making money with sneaker reselling. It'll be linked in this guide, and once again, everything will be down in the description below. I also do have a private reselling group called Resell Kings, where basically our number one goal is to make our members as much profits as possible. And so we send out daily information and daily alerts for flips, sneakers, deals, and just everything like that. And so if you're interested in learning more about what we do, you can click on this link right here, and that'll just explain everything so you can see if it's something you're interested in becoming a part of. And lastly, I do also have a completely free server that you can join right now. Once again, everything will be down in the description below. So let's get started. One of the most popular and best platforms to secure sneakers from is called the Nike SNKRS app. So this is Nike's official app. So anytime there's a good collaboration or a good release, in 95% of cases, they will be dropping on this app. This is where the most hype sneakers will be releasing. This is an absolute must-have app. This is where pretty much everything is going to be dropping on. And so with that being said, you should download this right now from the App Store if you haven't already. It is 100% completely free. This app is relatively difficult to hit on if you don't know what you're doing, but luckily for you guys, I have a ton of experience with hitting sneakers from here. And there was a point in time where I was hitting on like 80 to 90% of every single hype sneaker that was dropping. And I'm going to be explaining how I was able to do this and how you can replicate these results. So first things first, it's important to understand how the app even works in the first place. You're basically just going to set up a free account and you're going to enter in all your information like your address, your email, your phone number, and your credit or debit card details. And shoes will typically load onto the app a few days prior to them releasing. So in most cases, you're going to know exactly when and how a sneaker is going to be releasing. One thing that Nike will occasionally do is something called a shock drop. And this basically means that they're going to release sneakers on their app without any prior notice or without any information or announcement to the public. And so quick plug, within Resell Kings, we actually have our own plugs that work directly with Nike, and they alert us beforehand whenever one of these shock drops is happening. And so we always know hours in advance when something profitable is going to release, even though Nike themselves don't announce anything to the general public. And so for sneakers that are not a shock drop, which is going to be most of them, these will release on the app almost every week, and you're going to have the chance to enter in for them as a 10-minute raffle, also referred to as a Dan release. So at drop time, all you're going to do is basically click on the sneaker that you want to go for, and you should be seeing it on the main home feed on the app. And then you're just going to enter in for whatever size that you want. After 10 minutes, when the raffle closes, you're either going to get lucky and you're going to win the shoes, or you're going to take an L and you're not going to win the shoes. And so that's a Dan release. It's basically you go onto the app, you enter in for a quick 10-minute raffle, and when the 10 minutes are over, you're going to be alerted if you won or not. So for less popular sneakers, they will release as a Leo release, which basically just means a 2 to 3 minute raffle, and basically the same exact thing that I just described, except it's going to be 2 to 3 minutes instead of a 10-minute raffle. These releases are typically a little bit easier to win because they're not doing as much filtering, which we'll talk about in just a second, but just know that it's basically the same thing except a shorter time frame for the raffle. Let's talk about increasing your chances of being able to hit on the Nike SNKRS app, which, like I said, if you've been in the game for over a month, then this is probably going to be one of the most important sections in this guide that you're going to want to pay attention to. So the main way to increase your chances of being able to hit on the Nike SNKRS app is by entering in multiple accounts into each drop. And this might sound super obvious, but I promise there is a lot of details that go into this, and I'm going to be explaining all of them down below. The main concept to be able to do this is to use unique information on each account and making yourself look different to Nike. This basically means that for every account, you want to be using a different name, a different device, a different phone number, different payment information, and a different address. And you might be thinking, okay, but I only have one address, one phone number, and one card to make purchase with. Don't worry, all right? I got you. There are plenty of workarounds for all of this. And like I said, we're going to be covering all of them in detail. First things first, this is the absolute number one recommendation. It's going to be friends and family. So this is the lowest hanging fruit for the majority of people, which basically means the easiest thing that you can grab or take advantage of right now. So at the end of the day, the SNKRS app is going to be a game of odds. If someone tries to tell you that there is some specific method or algorithm hack you can do to win, you shouldn't trust anything else that comes out of that person's mouth. There's no special settings you can enable on your account that will help you win. There's no specific way of entering releases that will help you win. This is all complete nonsense. So to put it very simply, the more entries that you get into the release, the higher chance you will have of winning. This is also assuming that you are getting quality entries in and your entries aren't getting filtered out by Nike. My example that I made, more entries equals more wins. So let's keep talking about friends and family. So when it comes to reaching out to friends and family, here is the best method in my opinion. Number one is going to be incentivizing them. Humans love incentive. So I'd offer them a flat fee for every sneaker they're able to purchase for you. The fee will depend on the sneaker they got and whatever you think is fair. And if it's a good sneaker that you're going to make $50 profit on, let's say, you can give them $10 or something like that. And if you make $500 from a pair, then you can give them $100. Whatever you guys can agree on that you think is good. And just to be clear, if it's your mom or your dad or something, like more than likely they're going to want to do it for free. But the point of this is that you're reaching out to a wide net of people, friends, cousins, relatives, whoever. And a lot of people aren't going to want to spend time doing this. So those are the people that you want to be incentivizing. If someone's down to do it for free, that is best case scenario. So when this person agrees and they're willing to do this for you, when they're making their account, they should be using their own information for everything. A quick checklist for this would be their own device, their own name, their own email, their own phone number, and their own payment method. And once they've done that, all you're going to want to do is just remind them before every release. And one very important thing you should do is just send them a screenshot of the exact shoe they should be entering for. I remember a while ago within the group, this guy told his friend to go for this sneaker and he just copped an absolute brick, and it was very funny. So send them a screenshot of whatever sneaker they should be going for. So if they win, you simply just send them money for whatever the shoe costed. And we're going to be talking about best payment methods and stuff like that later in the guide. But they win, you send them the money, and you also send them the commission that you're going to pay them. When the shoe arrives, you go and pick them up from their house. And that's pretty much it. It's a super basic concept. And this really, really, really is super important when you're just getting started. And one thing to consider, if there's a super profitable sneaker, which could be $500, $1,000 in profit, then it could be worth it to you to hit up everyone you know, even if they don't live close, and then they can just ship the shoe to you whenever they get it. And so this is the end goal, this picture right here. And this is everyone with sneaker accounts entering in for raffles for you. So multiple entries. This might seem like a lot of work, and that's because it is. This is the difference between people who don't win a single time and people who are able to win consistently. It's up to you to decide on which person you want to be. So if we just do some quick maths, we can see that if you are able to get 2 quality entries instead of just 1, you are mathematically increasing your chances of winning by 100%, double. If you get 5 quality entries in, then you are increasing your odds by 400% compared to just 1 entry. Obviously, guys, this is a massive, massive difference. So the people that you always hear complaining that they're never hitting, ask them how many entries that they're getting in, and I can guarantee it's 1, maybe 2 max. Now imagine for a second if instead of getting 5 entries in, you were able to get 50 in, or what about 500 in? And this is completely possible. I've done it many, many times before in the past, and there's a ton of people in our group who do the exact same. And this is going to require a little bit more than just utilizing your friends and family. So let's keep it moving. First things first, we have multiple devices. And so another quick point is that you should be utilizing all of the possible devices that you have in your household. For whatever reason, people always seem to hit on iPads. I don't know why. I have no idea why. If you have an iPad, definitely make sure to be using it. Nike does track IP addresses, and we're going to be talking about this more in a second. So for a quick rule of thumb, you should only be running 2 to 3 devices on the same Wi-Fi at any given point in time. So for example, if you have 3 devices, let's say you have 2 iPhones and 1 iPad, for example, then it would probably be ideal to run 1 iPhone and 1 iPad on Wi-Fi, and then the other iPhone on mobile data, which is your 5G or your LTE. So at this point in time, you should take action on hitting up your friends and family and seeing who would be willing to set up an account and enter in on all of the profitable releases for you. You should do that right now. Take some action. At least make out a list of every single person you can think of that would be willing to do this for you. Come up with some, kind of incentive model and get that done, because that's going to be extremely important. And once you hit your first sneaker, or once a family member hits a sneaker that you make $200-$300 profit on, you're going to be happy you did it. One thing to keep in mind is that these releases will typically happen at 10 a.m. EST, and they'll usually never be earlier than this. They will only be later. So if you're on the West Coast, it's going to be early, but that really shouldn't change anything in my opinion. Wake up early and just get after it. And this is Unbreakable Kicks on YouTube showing his 3 devices. I thought that was a funny picture. And so now let's talk about running multiple accounts by yourself. And so this is not going to involve friends and family, but let's get into it. When you're first starting out, friends and family is going to be the absolute #1 recommendation, as it is completely free to do and it's almost impossible to mess up. And so messing up just basically means making shitty accounts and getting bad entries in so that you get filtered on Nike's end and they basically just don't count and they don't actually get entered into the release. And so this is something that could happen when you try to scale up and run, 50, 100, 200 accounts. So just keep that in mind. With friends and family, there's very little variables that can go wrong. Everyone will be using a different IP address, aka, different Wi-Fi or a different LTE on their phone. They're going to be using a different card, different name, different email, different phone number, etc. So it makes a lot of sense when you're just starting out to just begin with that. It's going to be free, and like I said, it's hard to mess up and make bad accounts. So now let's assume that you've been doing that for a few months, you've gotten some wins, you've made a couple $1,000s, and you're ready to now begin scaling up. This is, by the way, one of my favorite shoes ever, the Jordan 4 Off-White Sales. So now let's talk about how many accounts you can run on your own. So this is about to get super in depth and will be the most technical part of this section and maybe this entire guide. Some of this information may be repeated in the botting section of this course, but that's probably for the best as it can get a little bit confusing. So I'm going to be explaining everything in a very easy way for you guys to understand. And here's a diagram of how it's going to be working. So Nike account, aka 1 entry into whatever sneaker you want to be going for. You are going to be needing a different phone number, a different email address, a different card/payment method, and a different proxy or IP address. So if you have no idea what that last one is do not worry. Nike accounts. Every single Nike account that you are running, includes the ones from your friends and family, will all have to be unique in a few different ways. And these are the different ways listed here. Number one is a unique phone number. And this is basically just to make the account itself. Unique email address. This is to make the account. And this is also required for two-step verification. Different card or payment information. This is used for entering each drop and actually purchasing the sneaker. You're going to need a unique shipping address. And so you can reuse the same address about 10 times with something called jigging. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And then you're going to need a different proxy or IP address. So Nike doesn't see 50 accounts all coming from the same Wi-Fi, from the same house, from the same IP address. And we're going to talk about all of these in detail. So all of these should be relatively self-explanatory besides for the proxies and the jigging as well. And so I'm going to explain proxies now, and then I'll explain them again during the botting section of this guide. And I'm also going to be explaining jigging in the botting section of this guide as well, which is going to be a little bit later. So here is a basic visual of how proxies work. So this is you on your home IP address on, AKA your router or your Wi-Fi. And you're going to be telling a proxy server that you want to go to google.com. And so this is your IP address. And then the proxy server's IP address is going to be completely different. So the proxy server is trying to go on google.com. And so Google is going to receive the request from the proxy server IP, which is 2.2.2.2, which is making you anonymous. And if that absolutely made no sense, I explained it better right here. Every single person who has a router, AKA your Wi-Fi, has something called an IP address. An IP address is essentially the online address for your router, AKA your Wi-Fi. So just like you have a home address that you live in, like 123 Main Street, Miami, Florida, whatever that is, your router is also going to have a unique address. Nobody's router address, AKA the IP address, is the same, and everyone's is going to be completely unique from one another. Whenever you visit any website in the world, let's just use Nike.com for this example, they are able to see your IP address. An issue arises when a website sees that there is 100 accounts coming onto their website all at the same time from the same IP address. So if they see 100 accounts all entering in from your home router, your Wi-Fi, your IP address, that is going to look very suspicious and very unhuman-like. So they can easily tell that this is a very unhuman-like amount of traffic coming onto the website at the same time because it's all coming from one person. They can easily tell that because you're using the same IP address for all those 100 accounts. So in order to avoid this happening, we are going to be using something called proxies, which is basically just a way to mask our IP addresses and change them at scale. And so a proxy is essentially like a new IP address that you're able to use on all of your accounts so that each one looks completely unique. And if you guys are familiar with VPNs, proxies are essentially the same exact thing, except instead of using, you can use one VPN on your computer, you're able to use proxies at scale for hundreds and hundreds of different accounts. So if you're running 100 tasks or 100 accounts onto a website, you would run 100 unique proxies for each account that all have a different IP address and a different location. So instead of the website seeing 100 tasks coming from one IP address and one location, it would just look like 100 random IP addresses, aka 100 different proxies, coming from different locations, which makes it extremely more complex to be able to track and see if it's actually all coming from one person. So I know that was a lot, and hopefully that makes sense. I would recommend looking at the visual again, and I'm going to be showing you in more detail how proxies actually work down below. And just to kind of scroll up, so remember, this is our Wi-Fi. This is the proxy that you can buy. You can buy this new IP address. You're going to use the proxy, and so now when you're coming onto the website, instead of seeing your home IP address, you're using the proxy to mask this and change it. So now Google or Nike or whoever is going to see this new IP address, which is going to look completely anonymous, and we can run hundreds and hundreds of these different proxies to make it look like it's just a ton of different random people coming onto the website. Hopefully, I think that should have hit home, I hope. But we're going to keep going. So once again, your computer, proxy server goes to the internet. Instead of, you just going directly to the internet, you're running through a proxy. So if you're running a sneaker bot or some kind of software, there's going to be a place where you're able to insert your proxies. But let's assume that you wanted to make 5 to 10 Nike accounts by yourself and you just wanted to run them directly from your computer. And you are completely able to do this, and let me explain how. So we're going to be using Chrome users for this. And you can make new Chrome users by clicking on your profile image. And obviously you have to be using Chrome for this, but you click on this little T here, or whatever your initial is. You're going to click on the add button, and then you're going to want to give this Chrome user a name that will be easy to remember. And now you can essentially think of this Chrome user as a completely new device. So, if you're using your phone, you make a new Chrome user, it's almost like you have an iPad or something like that, but this is all obviously going to be on your computer. And so if you're using 3 unique Chrome users, this would be the equivalent of using 2 iPhones and 1 iPad in the example above. The reason this works is because Chrome users don't share cookies between one another. And if you ever go onto a website and they're like, accept cookies, deny cookies, those are the type of cookies that we're talking about. And when you make a new Chrome user, they don't have the same cookies. And so they're pretty much completely separated, and they look unique when going onto a website in terms of the actual cookies and in terms of the device that they're coming from. That's what it looks like to the website. So the only thing now that we're missing is a proxy, because even if you have separate Chrome users, they're still going to be using the same IP address, because you're just on your normal Wi-Fi, just using both of these Chrome users. And so just to be clear, quick tip, using new tabs does not work. It needs to be a completely separate Chrome user. So when we're using separate Chrome users, it looks like a different device, and then we're using a separate proxy on each of these Chrome users. They look like they're coming from a different location. So now we have different device and different location handled, and then we're gonna have to work on the other steps of the information. So hopefully we're making some progress here, and this makes sense. I know it is technical, but this is what's required, guys. This is literally straight sauce right here. So hopefully this is making sense. If it doesn't, just go back and watch it a couple times, and you should be good to go. So using proxies continued. So like I said, we need to put a unique proxy on each Chrome user. And so to do this, you're going to download an extension called BP Proxy Switcher. And this is the correct one right here. And you're going to want to install it on Chrome. And you should now be able to access it by clicking on the little puzzle piece top right of your Chrome browser. And I don't know what this image was. I think it was just showing the puzzle piece, which is right down here. And so if you don't see it, click on the 3 lines at the top right of your Chrome, these 3 lines right here, and then go to extensions right here. And then you're just going to want to activate it, and you'll be able to see that. So you're going to have to install this BP Proxy Switcher extension on each and every single Chrome user that you plan to use proxies and run a Nike account on. Because when you're using this extension and when you insert a proxy, that will only apply to that specific Chrome user that it's being used on. So after you insert a proxy, you'll be able to test out if the proxy is actually working by typing in what is my IP address on Google, and then it should be showing you some random location, and this is where the proxy you're using is going to be located. So just to do a quick recap of everything, we're going to use different Chrome users for every single Nike account that we want to run. So let's say that we want to get 10 entries and we want to run 10 Nike accounts. We're going to make 10 separate Chrome users. So now it's looking like they're all coming from separate devices to Nike. That's what we want. And then on each Chrome user, we're going to be using a different proxy. So it looks like they're all coming from different locations and they're not all coming from the same IP address. So let's talk about buying proxies. And if you type in proxy on Google, you're going to see thousands and thousands of different companies and options to buy from. 95% of these are going to be complete garbage. And so I used to run my own proxy company, so I know exactly how the game works. And the one thing about proxies and getting into this game of really scaling up is that it can be volatile at times. A proxy company that was working super great could stop working or just go out of business the next day. There's a ton of possibilities that could happen. And the most important part is really just ensuring that your proxies are fully 100% working and not getting filtered or detected by Nike. And for that reason, I'm not going to give any specific proxy company recommendations, but I will say this. There are two main types of proxies. The first is called residential, and the second is called ISP proxies. And the main type that you want to use for Nike is going to be ISP proxies, as these will have a less likely chance of getting banned, and the proxies won't be changing every month. So this will consistently keep the account you're using on the same proxy, the same IP address, which is a positive overall, and it just looks better to Nike when your account is entering in from the same proxy or the same IP address every single release. And so there are a few select residential proxy providers that work well, at least as of now, but for the most part, I would stick to ISP proxies for Nike. So using a sneaker bot on Nike is going to be a very similar process to everything that we just discussed. You're going to need accounts, you're going to need proxies, and you're going to need different shipping and billing information. Then, instead of using Chrome users, you basically just plug all that information into the bot itself, and then it automates a lot of this process. So what we just described is essentially how a sneaker bot works, but the only difference is that, a sneaker bot is going to be automating a lot of that process for you. So once again, if you're serious about learning all of this and you're really just someone who wants to jump in the game head first, I highly recommend checking out my group Resell Kings. We have some of the most insane sneaker resellers and sneaker botters who will be able to show you everything so you don't make mistakes, you don't waste time, and ultimately you don't waste any money. All right, so let's talk about release day. We just went over so much information about the Nike SNKRS app, and I'm telling you guys, that is straight sauce that we just went through. Not a lot of people know about that. So let's run through an example of how this entire process would work on release day. Just to be clear, the reason that Chrome browsers work in the first place is because you're able to enter up on these Nike releases, like on the Nike SNKRS app, via desktop. So they're going to drop on the app itself on your phone, and they're also going to drop the same exact thing on desktop. So it's essentially the same process as entering in through the app itself, and that's the reason why we're able to use our computer and able to use Chrome browsers. So 5 to 10 minutes before drop day, you want to open up your Chrome browsers, or your bot if you're running one, and you want to make sure that your setup is completely correct. Your account should be logged in, and you should be on a proxy for each account. Then you're going to want to go to this link, which is nike.com/launch. You'll find the shoe that should be releasing that day. And right when the shoe drops, you're just going to want to enter in on all of your devices, your friends and family, and your Chrome browsers as quickly as possible. And assuming that you've done everything right and you have a decent amount of entries going in, your chances of hitting on the Nike SNKRS app should be greatly increased with all of these methods we talked about above. This still doesn't mean you're going to hit on every single release, because that's just not realistic, but I can almost guarantee that you will hit on some of them and you will be able to make consistent profits in the process. So that is a wrap on the Nike SNKRS app, and that is all the sauce that you need to know to be successful with it. And if you guys actually implement what I'm talking about, you are going to be successful with the app. You're going to be able to hit on profitable pairs, and you're going to be able to make some money. So I hope that was valuable, and I hope that helped. Let's keep it moving.